Season 54, War number 2, and we're up against LVT. This time my team will be Silk, Shocker, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. I will be taking Path 1 in Section 1, Path 5 in Section 2, and then a Lady D, Sassy, Enchantress and Bullseye miniboss, and finally the Warlock boss there as well. Now, as you can probably expect, the vast majority of these fights will be taken with Silk. Shocker is on the team and he is a rank 3 champion currently, but I will not be using him for any fights. He's only a synergy piece this time around. Now, starting off here we have a Nick Fury on the personal space regeneration node, and I will be taking the fight with Silk. Now, Silk isn't exactly ideal for any Nick Furies, but considering her damage output, well, in general, plus the Shocker synergy with the Rupture debuffs, she can do this fight very easily. The regen, I don't really want to let it stack up, so whenever he gets a stack I will step away for a moment, let it fall off, before going back in and continuing with the fight. If he were to get enough regen triggers here to trigger the passive Fury, the biggest risk there would be getting comboed. So the one thing that's the most important thing to do here is just manage the tactical charges, which is honestly the most important thing when fighting Nick Fury anyways. So this one's nothing special. Fight took a little bit less than a minute, which isn't the fastest fight, but considering the class disadvantage and needing to take down 2 health bars, it's not bad. Then we have a Mysterio on the Masochism Overtime node, and I will be taking this fight with Silk as well. He is a tactic defender, so there will be the withers on every single time I make contact with the defender. That will keep triggering the Masochism node over and over whenever the cooldown is off, and that essentially means you will be permanently unblockable. Now, with the Decay tactic, you are able to completely shut down the reflect damage on Mysterio Special 1, provided you can keep the debuffs up, and that basically means this fight is just an unblockable Mysterio with nothing else going on. You can ignore the damage reflect completely, just be aggressive, hit the opponent until they drop, and that's about it. And that is exactly what I did here. Fight took around 40 seconds, a little bit more than that. No damage taken there. Mysterio, when you don't need to worry about any of the damage reflect or any of that, is fairly simple to take, and most tactic defenders can do the fight just fine. Silk, not being able to trigger the dexterity buff, is just a very easy and powerful option for most of them. Then we have a Killmonger here on the Flow Intercept and Sadist nodes, and I'm taking the fight with Negasonic. Now, Negasonic was basically built to counter most, if not all, of the tough skill defenders, and Killmonger is no exception. First off, since everything that Negasonic does is a passive, her parries, incinerates everything, Killmonger will not be gaining any extra power whenever he's inflicted with any of those, and then of course every single hit Negasonic has is a non-contact hit. And that means the reverberation damage will simply not exist in this fight, and all I gotta do is just hit the opponent until they drop. That's about it. Whenever possible, I will try to land an intercept to remove the event flow protection, but even then, if I don't manage to do that, or if I even don't try to, all I gotta do is just keep hitting the opponent and eventually they will fall. It might not be the fastest fight, but it works out, and I will need Negasonic for the Bullseye miniboss later on, so this fight was a simple solution. Now, I could have taken this match with Shocker as well, but Negasonic just perfectly counters Killmonger, so there was no need to try to mess around with that. Then we have a Juggernaut on the Ebb and Flow, Intercept and Mighty Charge nodes, and I will be taking this fight with Silk. Now, Juggernaut is a tactic defender, however, it really means absolutely nothing. Silk is a perfect counter to basically any tactic defender, or at the very least most of them, but even then, this is just a Juggernaut, so there's not really too much here to worry about. Sure, since this is the Mighty Judge node, you can't really keep up the slow debuffs here with other tactic champions. Every single time the opponent dashes towards you, they will just remove the slow, and that means there is some unstoppable you might need to worry about, but if you just play the fight safely and watch out for that, this fight can be taken with any tactic champion without any bigger problems, as well as some non-tactic champions as well. Overall, Silk just completely destroyed the fight, and it could have been a lot faster, but I wasn't trying to play too risky. Then next up here we have a Lady D on the personal space regeneration miniboss node along with drip feed placebos, and I will be taking this fight with Silk as well. Now, this, or Lady D in general, is a bit of a weird one for Silk. Now, you do have the slow debuff, which does shut down the unstoppable during the attacker specials or Lady's opponent specials, but there is still the regen to worry about, and even though my Silk is awakened here and I do run Despair, I can't shut down the healing because you can't lower her regeneration potency. And that basically means the best way for me to deal with this fight, or I guess the safest way, is to do what I did with the Nick Fury. Every single time the defender gains a regeneration stack from the node, just step away, let it fall off, and then you can keep on going with the fight. As you can see, I tried using the special 2 there, it didn't really do too much, and with that I cemented the strat of simply doing some mediums, followed by heavies, letting the Ruptures do most of it, along with her basic attacks of course, and just slowly and steadily take down the fight. I don't doubt that Silk would be able to nuke this fight down with the special 3 rotation, but honestly thinking about it right now, yeah, no, I don't think that's a good idea. She would just regen the hit damage on the special 2, and then since you're so close to her throughout the whole rotation, she's gonna stack too many of the regens, and I don't think she can out-damage that considering no Despair or regen reduction from the Sig ability. So yeah, this is probably the best way to do this. Even though I had the Shocker synergy here, I'm fully boosted with a rank 3 Silk, the fight did take quite a bit longer than I initially thought. The fight isn't exactly risky, so long as you play it safe, but yeah, it wasn't nearly as good as I thought it would be going in. Then we have a Sasquatch here on the Scared Stiff miniboss node along with Bubble Shield and Power Focus 2 of course, and I'm taking the fight with Silk. This one should be obvious enough. Silk completely shuts down Sassy, the regen is turned off with Despair and her Sig ability, the tactic completely shut down with Decay, and then Silk, she has the damage to deal with Sassy on basically any node. The biggest risk or biggest issue you might have with this fight is a very horribly timed Wrath trigger on Sassy, since he will go stun immune when he does so, and if that happens just as you charge your heavy attack, he can eat the stun with the Wrath and then immediately punish you, which has happened to me plenty of times in the past, mostly in battlegrounds. So that is something you really need to keep an eye on whenever you fight Sassy with her. You can never be too safe with the heavies. And then we have an Enchantress here on the Aspect of Evolution miniboss node, and I'm taking the fight with Silk. You can probably guess by now, I'm using Silk a lot this season. This is just the beginning. Now, the plan here is to do the normal special 3 rotation, which is usually the safest way to use Silk for most things really. And while I'm climbing up to my special 3, I try not to let her use her special 1s by simply holding my block and baiting a heavy attack for an opening. Generally speaking, that's the best way to fight Enchantress on most nodes with most counters, since the special 1 is what triggers her spells, and that's when you gotta start doing some weird stuff like knockdowns, intercepts and punishing heavy attacks. Overall, I don't want to deal with that, so I just don't let her use any, get to that special 3, and at this point the fight is essentially over. I could have finished the fight earlier with a special 2, using my striker for another Fury as well, but this is the safest way to go about it, and that's exactly what I did. I didn't do the usual rotation following the special 3, since it wasn't necessary. I just spammed mediums for more of the rupture debuffs from the shocker synergy and let those help me out with the finish. Quick boost change for this next fight, being a Bullseye on the Conflictor and Combat Actual Prowess miniboss node, and I will be taking the fight with Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Using the mutant boosts here isn't necessary, and honestly it's a bit of a waste as well. You're not gonna be gaining too much power back from your special 2s, and even then, most of your damage here comes from the Incinerate as well as your basic attacks. The fight isn't the fastest, but overall there's really nothing Bullseye can do to you so long as you play the fight right. And by that, simply bait special 2s and dex them, which is simple enough to do, and then just repeat that until the fight is done. You have to manage his evade properly here, otherwise you're gonna be taking some block damage as well as potentially pushing him to a special 3 if you're not careful. You can just try to nuke the fight, it's not safe, play it slow and steady, bait the special 2s, don't try to risk it. And that's about all there is to it. I didn't do too good of a job in this fight. I mismanaged his power bar and I had to bait a special 1, or rather he threw the special 1. I am fairly comfortable fully dexing it these days with 60 frames per second, but I did not want to risk it there, so I just blocked it. It's a lot of damage, but it was the final fight for Negasonic, so it's not an issue. Then we have the final fight of the war, a Warlock boss that I will be taking with Silk, and I do have the Odin pre-fights here to help me out. Basically every single unique buff on the champion lowers the duration of the infection passive that Warlock inflicts, and eventually if you have enough unique buffs, it simply never triggers. And essentially what that means is I don't really have to worry about the power drain here at all, and even if I didn't have the Odin pre-fights, the degeneration damage from the infection power draining you would be completely shut down by the decay tactic. So essentially the only real use for the Odin pre-fights here is the additional safety net from the protection 1, and then the infection also does lower your offensive ability accuracy, which can prevent you from applying the physical vulnerabilities, the ruptures, and then the burst on your special 2 and the special 1 as well. So generally you just wanna avoid the infection if possible. Silk isn't exactly the greatest Warlock counter, but you really don't need one. So long as you have someone to deal with the tactic, that's all you need. And well, as you have probably seen already, and you will continue to see throughout the season, Silk is just amazing. The sheer amount of fights she can take with these tactics, it's pretty insane. And yeah, normally this is not a matchup you would do on basically any node, but for this one she just makes it super easy. With the special ones here, I am also fully dexing them, which is something I don't generally tend to do against Warlock. But Silk has the auto evade. If you mess up the dex, it's fine. She will save you with the auto evade, provided it is not on cooldown, which generally it isn't. If you get crit even through the block, then it will go on cooldown, or if you consume the evade by messing up a special dex earlier, all you gotta do is just wait out the cooldown for, I believe, 20 seconds or 20 hits in your combo, either or, and there we go. The fight was as simple as that. As for the results though, we did end up losing the war 0-3. LVT just donated us and we died 3 whole times, which is, for a tier 1 alliance, horrible for this tactic. So no clue what happened there, but it wasn't great.